Hello, in this lesson we are going to look at the Cypherpunks. So this is essentially going to be a history lesson on the cypherpunk movement and how they all originated. So prior to the 1970s, prior to the 1970s, cryptography, if you want a little refresher of what cryptography is, we've got a lesson covering that, so feel free to check that out. Cryptography was primarily used by military and spy agencies. So James Bond. But essentially that sort of stuff. Military and spy agencies, they're the ones that mainly use cryptography. But all of this changed with two publications that actually brought this into the public eye, brought this into the open. There's two major publications that changed this. And those publications were Data Encryption Standards. So I think you can guess what this publication was about. The standards for how data should be encrypted, and New Directions in Cryptography. So this was just about New Directions in Cryptography. This was just about the new advancements, what that was coming, what was here, how to use it. So essentially the standards and what was coming in cryptography. So this was brought into the public eye. It wasn't until the 1980s, when a guy named, well, his name wasn't, his title was Doctor. His name was David Chown. Probably pronounced the name incorrectly, sorry if I have. And David Chown wrote extensively on two main topics, and they might actually sound very familiar. It was Anonymous, not Anonymous the group, Anonymous Digital Cash, Anonymous Digital Cash, and Pseudonymous. I think I spelled it wrong, but you get what I mean. Pseudonymous reputation system. So all to do with anonymity, and this might sound familiar, and this is Bitcoin, or not just Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies in general. So this is what formed this. And over the next few years, as it was in the public eye, there was a lot of discussion going, especially between enthusiasts. And over the next few years, these ideas coalesced into a movement, as they always do, into a movement. And in 1992, three individuals by the name of Eric Hughes, Timothy C. May, and John Gilmore, no relationship to the Gilmore Girls, not that I'm aware of. So Eric Hughes, Timothy C. May, and John Gilmore in 1992 founded a small group. They founded a small group in 1992 that met monthly, so they had meetings once a month, and they met at John Gilmore, so at Gilmore's company he worked at, which was Cygnus Solutions. And if you're interested in where this was This was located in the San Francisco Bay Area. So they was meeting once a month, and they named their group the Cypherpunks, and it was named like that as a joke because it was derived from the word cipher, which is to do with cryptography, and the punk part and part of the cipher part was from cyberpunk. So cyberpunk. So it's a mixture of cipher and cypherpunks, and that's essentially where the name cypherpunk came from. Roughly around about the same time, a mailing list was formed. And a few months later, the mailing list is important because all these sort of followers were able to access the content they was talking about, the content that they created. A few months later, Eric, aka with Eric here, Eric Hughes, Eric published a Cypherpunks manifesto. And this is a great manifesto, definitely worth reading. It's actually not very long at all. I'm just going to read out just like a short passage from the manifesto, and it goes: privacy is necessary for an open society in the electronic age. Privacy is not secrecy. Private matter is something one doesn't want the whole world to know, but a secret matter is something one doesn't want anybody to know. Privacy is the power to selectively reveal oneself to the world. So that all sounds well and good, and one of the first things that comes to mind for a lot of people that aren't very, obviously, well educated in privacy and just don't properly think about it, they say they have nothing to hide, aka their old saying, if you have nothing to fear, you have nothing to hide. What they don't actually realize is they are quoting the chief propaganda guy of the Nazis, I think. Yeah, that's just like a terrible swastika. Let me do a better one. There we go. That looks much better. So he was the chief propaganda guy of the Nazis. His name was Joseph Goebbels. I don't know if I've spelled his name correctly, but that nothing to hide sort of philosophy it comes from him when he was trying to when the Nazis were trying to essentially subdue the population in letting them do what they want. And this whole nothing to hide thing, it's not about if you have nothing to hide. It's like people saying, it would be the equivalent of saying, I have nothing to say, therefore I don't care about freedom of speech. And that almost sounds okay, but the problem is, what about the day where you do have something to say? You think the people that have taken away your freedom of speech will give it back? They won't. So this whole idea of nothing to hide is bullshit, because people think that if you have something to hide, or you want privacy, that you're doing something illegal. And that's not always the case. You close your curtains at night because you don't want people looking in. You wouldn't be happy if somebody was following you all the time but never did anything, but was just constantly watching your every move and just making notes. And that's essentially what the Cypherpunk manifesto was trying to say. And it doesn't matter that you're not doing anything illegal. You should have the right to selectively choose what the world sees and what your peers see and what people around you see. So in an open society, privacy is actually very important. It might actually almost seem antithetical that if it's open, that it shouldn't be closed, but an open society should allow the freedom to have what you want to be public and what you don't want to not be public. And that was one of the really important parts of the Cypherpunk manifesto. And if you've been following the rest of this series in talking about cryptocurrencies and talking about blockchain in general and cryptography, you'll see that the cypherpunk sort of philosophy is underlying all of that. And some of the notable members of the cypherpunk, so some of the members, I'm only going to mention a few, but there are several. If you Google it, you'll find loads. Julian Assange, which I'm sure everyone is aware. He is the founder of WikiLeaks. There is Jacob Applebaum, and he is the Tor developer. So the Tor network, that's obviously very, very influential within the cypherpunk movement, and just anyone that wants to remain anonymous. Again, journalists use it, and they're not necessarily doing anything wrong, but they want to protect themselves and protect their sources. So this whole idea of privacy is crucial to the freedom of speech and the actual freedom of reporting news as well. So we also have Bram Cohen. And he was the creator of BitTorrent. So another major contribution in the digital age. And in the 1990s, the 1990s saw the crypto wars, and this was essentially the US government. They was attempting to stifle the spread of strong commercial encryption, because at the end of the day they wanted to be able to track everything that you was doing, and they didn't want you to have any secrets, good or bad. So that's what was happening in the 1990s. It's still essentially happening now, but the government essentially lost that battle. They're still trying to put in backdoors and regulations that will allow them to get any piece of information, but it's not looking like in the long term the government's going to be able to do that. In 1997, a man called Dr. Adam Back created Hashcash, and it was a anti-spam mechanism, and it did this by adding time and computational cost to send in an email. So it's to do with emails. So it made it computationally expensive to send emails, but in the like small, like 1 or even 2 emails were low in comp cost, so computational cost, but it made spam uneconomical, because if it's going to require so much power and resources to send like a lot of emails, most spammers wouldn't be able to do it. So it was created as a mechanism for that. Then in 1998, Wayday, probably pronounced his name incorrectly again, sorry, Wayday published a proposal for B-Money. Sound like something out of a rap song, B-Money. And this essentially was contractual. It was contractual agreements between anonymous parties for sending and receiving money. So for sending and receiving money. Again, this might sound very familiar to you because this is the underlying philosophical foundation of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies in general. So cryptocurrencies in general. So all this cypherpunk movement helped lead to more knowledge on cryptography, made that knowledge open, and this led to proposals and products created, which ultimately led to what we have in Bitcoin, in blockchain, in Ether, and all of these other crypto-based products. And throughout the 2000s, many cypherpunks built on the original ideas that were talked about in the 80s and 90s, on the original ideas. They eventually became different layers and standards for securing data and securing communication over the web. They've led to innovations such as proof of work, which is heavily used in Bitcoin. It's obviously led to blockchain, which is the underlying ledger system to Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, and Bitcoin and all these other systems. So what we have is this movement called, let me get to it, called the Cypherpunks, that it's been going on for several decades, and all of these publications and the open knowledge of what cryptography is and how it can be used, once that came into the public eye, several innovations were created from Bitcoin to blockchain to proof of work to many other security-based implementations. So this has just been essentially a history lesson on the cypherpunks. If you have any questions or you want to know more about the cypherpunk movement, feel free to reach out. And as usual, thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in my next lesson.